What up, world? All right. Um, Man, we live in some strange times right about now. And one of the things that's making them strange is this thing called COVID. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. so, I've done a couple of videos on this. I think a couple of videos. And, you know, some conversation that I've had with some friends have spurred me to want to do another video about this. Partly also because I've got a couple of conspiracy theories that I've formulated um, that I'd like to go ahead and get out in the atmosphere, get out in the ether. Um, I know, conspiracy theory, but you know, I don't know if you like them or don't like them, but it's fine. First of all, conspiracy theories are real. It's just a matter of you know which ones are true and which ones are not. So, but that aside, the thing about COVID, um, it doesn't matter where you line up. If you believe the standard narrative or if you're a conspiracy theorist like me. I think if your conversations are similar to the conversations that I've been having, in that the people that you've been talking to, they may run the gamut of all these different views and land all over the spectrum. But one thing that's been very consistent is that most of the people think this whole scenario is strange, whether they trust the government, the narrative that's being pushed or not. Everybody's got this very uneasy feeling about it, and I don't think it's just the fear. Obviously, the media is pushing fear on everybody, but I don't think it's just that. I think it's the uncertainty of it. It's the inconsistency of it. So if you've been paying attention to the past couple days, a couple stories came out. The first story that I noticed yesterday was basically to say that the labs that so I'm in Florida, and we're the epicenter of all the COVID numbers going up, and so I believe these two stories were primarily about Florida, or at least partially about Florida. Um, so what came out basically was the fact that the numbers that were being reported by the labs were highly inflated and not true at all. A number of labs had 100% positivity rates, which is a statistical impossibility. And then also, like as an example, basically all of them had high rates, and so a couple of them, the examples they threw out, one of them being that I remembered was an Orlando lab that had a reported result of like 76%, I think, and actually the percentage was something along the lines of 7%. That's a huge difference. And so, and if you've been paying attention to this stuff, you realize that these numbers are super inflated anyway. Even the 7% type stuff is, because anytime you go to the hospital now, they're testing you. So you could be asymptomatic and they're going to test you. So they're doing a lot of tests to begin with. It isn't just people showing up to get tested. And to be honest, I went by a test site the other day and there wasn't anybody in the parking lot waiting to be tested. So I'm not saying that's how it is everywhere else. That's just anecdotal. But the other thing is that one of the other stories is that the fine print with these tests is strange but it's not strange when you think about it. They basically say that you could get a false positive because it may actually be that you have another coronavirus, not COVID 19. And one of the coronaviruses that we know of is the common cold. I don't know how many coronaviruses there are. There's probably a lot of them. But if you're getting a test for COVID 19, my hopes would be that it would be looking for COVID 19 specifically. Not to tell you that you have the common cold and then lump you in the results of COVID 19. So obviously, you see the immense problems that we have right now going on. The other story that came out was the fact that a lot of the test kits, apparently, this was reported by the New York Times, I believe, and this was done by the CDC, that the test kits actually already came preloaded with coronavirus. So the first thing that went through my head was, how do we know we're not giving people coronavirus when they come to get tested, if the story's to be true, I guess I've never had the corona test. I've heard they jam a giant swab up your nose, and I guess they put it into something called a regenerate, something, I forget what they called it. I think it was regenerate. And apparently that was what had COVID-19 in it, not the actual swab that they stick up your nose. But regardless, you can't trust the test. You can't trust the test. You can't trust the results, So this leads me to one of the main talking points that I wanted to talk about, and this is one of the things that spurred me to want to do the video, and this is the talk about the masks. And this will lead me to my first conspiracy theory. The masks. First of all, you notice how they sold it to us, right? Again, I said this thing was strange from the start. They sold us this whole COVID thing and the whole preparation and the whole shutdown and everything. Remember, it was 15 days to slow the spread. And you notice they just keep moving the goalposts. And I think everybody was fine. Everybody was fine with it. We were as fine with it as you could be, right? Say something and give us something else. Okay, we're all adjusting. We're all trying to figure it out. But it comes to a certain point where enough is enough. And there's some of us like me that understand masks to at least, look, I'm not a genius in these terms. I mean, I don't know germ theory, and quite frankly, I'm beginning to wonder if anyone knows germ theory. I do understand how a mask works. If a doctor is operating on somebody who has an open wound, that mask isn't keeping germs from going in and out in regards to this doctor's breath. It's just not. Because the masks are meant to breathe so that the doctor doesn't have an oxygen issue while he's operating in a sensitive area. Because you don't want that. You don't want a doctor losing oxygen to his brain when he needs his brain to operate on you. So, masks aren't for that. They're for keeping saliva or any other, maybe hair, from going into an open wound. And they're for keeping any blood splatter from getting in his mouth or in his or her nose. That's what it's for. It's never been to stop germs. The trick to this whole thing is this idea that if you wear a mask, you're going to help somebody else. That's the selling point. And that's the problem that we've got, because now, if you walk around without a mask, people think you don't care about people. And then when other people walk around with a mask, they go, look at me, I care. You see the problem there? But the details mean something. The facts mean something. First of all, the national narrative was, don't wear a mask. You could if you wanted to, but we don't recommend it. Now they say, oh, we were lying then. So the people, your friends, your neighbors, your family, who get on your case when you don't wear a mask, are saying, they say, we ought to wear masks. And okay, yeah, they said that you didn't, but they were lying then. So it's like, well, the obvious question is, how can you trust them? So liars are telling you that we ought to wear masks, and you're coming to me on behalf of liars and saying I have to now wear a mask. The N95 mask has a valve on it. Now, from what I understand, the N95 mask is really good for keeping germs from coming into your system. So if you want to protect yourself, that's what you want. But you ain't protecting nobody with an N95 mask because it's got a check valve on it and it expels everything. It's extruding CO or CO2. So you're not saving anybody if you're running around with an N95 mask. And there's no, you notice they don't even really care what you wear. Have you noticed this? Throw cloth on your face, t-shirt. They don't even care. They just want you to throw something on your face. And this is where the first conspiracy theory comes in. They are conditioning us to tell on each other. They are conditioning us to conform to either their edicts, to what they say, or to tell on those who don't. And the mask is very visible. First of all, there's a lot of psychological issues involved here, too. The very start of this whole COVID thing, the very negative thing that I saw was that we all went around, first of all, we have to separate from each other. You know, don't trust each other. Meanwhile, we're all looking above to Trump and to Fauci and anyone else to tell us, oh, please, dear masters, tell us, what shall we do next? But don't trust anyone around you. You see this is one of the oldest strategies. It's divide and conquer. And if, people can laugh at people who talk like I'm talking now, but the truth of the matter is there's a lot of money at stake. There's a lot of power. And the way in which that, especially the United States, is set up, and yeah, we're not actually free. Our votes actually don't mean too much. But one of the biggest problems that the elites have is that if we ever start thinking that we're free, if we ever start thinking we have power, they're in trouble. And that's what's going on here. And what they're doing is setting us all up, again, to get us to conform to doing what they say or telling on those who don't. And my guess is it's for a vaccine. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I mean, I'm becoming more and more an anti-vaxxer as this goes on and on. I'm not a hardcore anti-vaxxer. I think vaccines have their place. But I don't know how you can't not see what's going on here. And for anybody who knows the scenario in regards to Bill Gates, it does sound like tinfoil hat type stuff. But when you look into the details, it's legit. I mean, he has been at the business of creating hysteria about it or preparation for a vaccine. He was at a TED Talk, I think it was a TED Talk, saying that he's for population control. He listed out a number of things that would help in population control, and a vaccine is one of them. In my mind, I don't understand how that could possibly be if you're protecting lives. And so the other thing, too, is that why this fits and dovetails very nicely in regards to vaccines is because, as an example, you may see a story. I saw one months ago. It was on our local news, and they were talking about more fear stuff. Oh, you won't believe how many percentage of kids go to our schools that are unvaccinated. Oh no. What will we do if your kids are vaccinated? Who cares? How is this? If vaccines work, who cares? They're the ones taking the risk, right? I mean, you trust the science, right? I mean, I don't understand how's this? I still haven't quite had this explained to me. This whole concept here. Um, okay, if your goal is to eradicate a disease, it's like, oh, they're not part of, they're not participating. Okay, fine, I get it. But what do you want to happen? You want to force them? You want to have the government come in with guns and force needles into people's arms? Is that what you want? I mean, what's the point of running a story like that? So you see how this is very nicely set up for the mask thing. We're getting conditioned. So right now we're seeing who and who is not complying because it's right on our face, right? That's what they're doing. I think what has happened at some point in time, people realize this whole mask thing could be used. And that's what they're doing. They're going to they're going to get us acclimated to it. So, that's conspiracy theory 1. Conspiracy theory 2 is maybe a little bit more far-fetched, but I see patterns. I've been watching politics for a long time. And I know how the game works. And one thing that is interesting about this whole coronavirus scenario. I just mentioned a little while ago how the common cold was a coronavirus and how we have tons of coronaviruses. Have you noticed that none of them are called coronavirus? Why do we refer to this one as the coronavirus? If you watch a news story, your news anchor, your friendly neighborhood news anchor, or your national news anchor, when they're talking about COVID-19, will have the computer graphic of the corona ball with its little spikes and prongs floating behind them. We've all seen this. We are getting an education on viruses that we've never had before. And that is the sign for me. And one of the things that I think I understand is that if you want to sell a lie, you gotta sell it. You gotta go full on. So here's my conspiracy theory on this. This isn't a coronavirus. What we're dealing with is not a coronavirus. Just because of that. It's because they're selling it too much. They're selling it too much. If you look into the effects of those who deal with this, what you'll discover is that it's an oxygenation in the blood that's having an issue. This is what I'm not a doctor. I'm just listening. Here's the other thing. Why are they shutting down doctors? You got doctors who are talking about what they're seeing in their patients and they're shutting it down. In a pandemic, they're keeping information from us. And yet they're throwing information at us in a way they never have before. Corona, corona, corona. Here's what a corona looks like. That's the key for me. And I could be completely wrong about this, but it's completely fine if I am, but that's what I'm saying right now. This thing isn't a coronavirus at all. I don't know what it is. I'm not saying I know what it is. I'm just saying what we're dealing with, and this is just my conspiracy. I'm just throwing it out there. I just want to get it out there. And what did I say about the test? They're coming preloaded with corona. It can pick up any corona and give you, say, COVID-19. Yup, you got it. And they're educating us in a way we've never been educated before. It's misdirection. It's misdirection. It's something else. And I don't know what it is. I'm just saying, it's not a coronavirus.